Selling of electricity. This is the next concept that we'll be looking at. By the way, my name is Engineer Shegun, and you're welcome back to real class. This aspect is important because it affects our daily life and how do we sell, how our electricity is sold. You need to have a unit for measuring it and then convert that unit to monetary terms. And we measure electricity consumption at home in kilowatt hour. Let me try and explain this whole concept. First, we know that electric power is measured in joules. And but if we're to be measuring electric powers in joules at home, first, the people will not really get a good concept of it. Second, the values we'll be using will be too big. So we try to convert it to kilowatt hour. If, for example, let's say I have a basic appliance, let's say an electric fan, for example, let's just use that as so that everybody can grasp. And let's say an electric fan has, of course, a power consumption of about 80 watts, for example. And let's say somebody is to run this 80 watts for, let's say 10 hours, for example, times 10 times 10. 80 watts is power, 10 hours is time. You can say, okay, hours, if you want to convert this stuff to the basic SI unit in physics, we end up having our value to be very huge because this 10 hours, I can multiply by 3,600 to convert it to seconds. And if I multiply that by this, you see our value will be so big. So to easily do it, I need to convert this one to kilowatts. And if I convert this one to kilowatts, I'll just do it by dividing this by 1,000. So if I convert this one to kilowatts, for example, and of course this one is in hours, if I multiply, I'll be getting a value in kilowatt hour. So it becomes very easy. So let's run that magic and see what it's going to look like. So if I were to convert this one to kilowatt, I'll divide by 1,000. We simply are saying 10 raised power minus 3 times 10 hours. This basically will give me 80 times 10 raised power minus 2. And that will be actually 0.8 kilowatt hour, for example. So in 10 hours, the person would have consumed, if the person were to run this fan for 10 hours, the person would have consumed about 0.8 kilowatt hour of electricity. This kilowatt hour is a unit of energy. So this is the energy the person is consuming. We are not using it in joules now, we are using it in kilowatt hour. So the NECO company decided to say 1 kilowatt hour, this is what 1 kilowatt hour will cost. They can say that 1 kilowatt hour, let it cost 40 naira, for example. So they have told you that 1 kilowatt hour costs 40 naira. So the person can actually calculate how much he would have spent or how much he has to pay for running his fan for 10 hours because this is the energy he will consume, 0.8 kilowatt hour. So he would simply do basic mathematics. He would just say, well, if 1 kilowatt hour costs 40 naira, then 0.8 kilowatt hour will cost 0.8 times 40. That's what it will cost him. And if you run this math, it will be around 32 naira. That is what it's going to cost him for running the fan for 10 hours. This is just a fan. So the last start considering is applying all his appliances in the house. Let's say his refrigerator, his pressing iron, his TVs, his air conditioners, and all of those stuff. You see, I accumulate this just for 10 hours, but I can accumulate it for a month or for 2 months, and so on and so forth. So this is just the basic idea of how you are being charged per what you consume. So now I will give you a question. By the way, the question can look more complicated than this. This is just a very simplified version of what you would see. But if you understand this version, then you can handle more complicated version because those more complicated versions is just breaking them down into this simple version. So I'll write a question now, and then I'll use that question to explain the complicated way of solving questions like this. All right, so let's take our first question on selling of electricity. Now consider this question. A man has 300 watt bulbs. That means one of the bulb is 100 watt and he has three of them. 100 watt bulbs. 560 watt bulbs. One of the bulb is 60 watts and he has five of it. And 540 watt bulbs in his apartment. If he turns all the lights for 5 hours daily, and the cost of electricity is 1.20 naira per unit. When I say per unit, per kilowatt hour. So sometimes they will say per unit, or sometimes they will say per kilowatt hour. Note that the unit of measuring electric energy in household is kilowatt hour. His bill for 30 days is. His bill for 30 days is. They can even ask this question in a different way. They can say it's bill for a month. So you should know that a month is 30 days. So if each day is only for like 5 hours, what I want to first do is calculate the total power first, then I'll then calculate my energy, then of course do all of that stuff that will follow. So for the first 3 watt bulb, the bulb is 100 watts and he has 3 of it, so times 3 for this one. His other bulb is 60 watts and he has 5 of it, so it is plus 60 times 5. And the other one is 40 watt and he has 5 of it, so plus 40 times 5. For you not to be confused, let's just put them in brackets, knowing that I have to multiply first before I then add. 100 times 3 is 300, plus 60 times 5 is also 300, plus 40 times 5 is 200. So this is total watts. This is 600, 300 plus 300 is 600, 600 plus 200 is 800. So the total power of all the types of bulb he has all together is 800 watts. But it has to be in kilowatts. Again, the SI unit of power is in watts. But since this has to do with household consumption, we like to leave it in kilowatt because, of course, the unit of energy is kilowatt hour. I need to now convert it to what? Kilowatts. And that's why I convert it to kilowatt. I'll divide this by 1,000. So if I divide it by 1,000, I'll have 800 divided by 1,000. This cancels this, this cancels this. This will be 0.8 kilowatts. So now I want to calculate the total energy. I use W for energy. What we have is power. It's power in kilowatts. But energy is power times time, which now gives us our unit in kilowatt hour, because my time has to be in hours. But this is how I'm going to do it. So I know that work or energy is power times time. This will now be equals to, the power is already 0.8 times, but what will be my time? Each day is only for 5 hours. That's 5 hours. But it's only for 30 days, which will be 5 times 30. Note that it only is 24 hours, because a day, of course, is 24 hours. But the man did not only for the entire 24 hours, he is putting it on the board for 5 hours. So it's 5 times 30. If I run this whole stuff, this will be 0.8 times to make this easy, just for easy calculation, you can just easily use your calculator and run through this thing. But to make this easy for me, without a calculator, I can just say this 30 times 0.8, or this 30 is same as 3 times 10, which will make this whole thing look like 8 times 5 times 3. I can easily run it like this. But you can use a calculator to just run through this stuff. If you are confused to how I'm doing it like this, it's still correct. I just took 10 from this 30 to multiply this stuff. So if I do that, 8 times 5 is 40, and 40 times 3 is 120. So I have 120 kilowatt hour. That is the total energy consumption. That's what this will give you. You can just use a calculator and run it from here. You still get this 120. Now that I've done this, remember they told us that per unit is 1.2 naira. That is 1.2 naira per kilowatt hour. So if 1 kilowatt hour costs 1.2 naira, how many will 120 kilowatt hour cost? So my total cost now, will simply be 120 kilowatt hour times 1.2. This will give you 144 naira. This is the total cost. This is the total cost for running all these light bulbs for 30 days. 144 naira, just light bulbs, anyways. Well, they didn't tell us about the other appliances he has. So just the light bulb is 144 naira. Option what? Option D. That is how to solve questions like this. You can come in several ways. All you just need to do, get your total power, convert it to kilowatts, then get your total time, then of course multiply by the end cost per kilowatt hour, and then you get the total cost.